Welcome, welcome. Going to give everyone
Yeah,
a
I'm
compliment.
excited.
We are having some fun before you guys even join. So I know this is going to be a super fun call. Happy to see a lot of you this morning or afternoon, wherever you guys are. I'm in San Diego and it is pouring rain. So hopefully it's a little better wherever you all are. So before we get started, if you can go ahead and open up your chat box and go ahead and let us know if you have ever flown a drone before. And if so, where you've done it. That's just a great way for us all to get to know each other a little bit better. So my name is Laura. I am a San Diego chapter leader and one of the TNN virtual event hosts. And I have actually flown my drone before. And my first time has been with Christine, who taught me all about it. And it was amazing. So I'm super excited to be hosting her today because I'm a huge fan because she saved me for actually getting my drone out of the box and into real life. All right, so before we get into all the fun drone conversations, I am going to share my screen so we can talk a little bit about the Nomadic Network. Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar with the Nomadic Network called TNN, it was founded by Nomadic Matt in 2019. So far, we've hosted over 250 virtual events. We've been back to hosting in-person events for probably over a year now. So hopefully you have been to one of those, and we have a brand new website, which you've obviously been on since you've registered for this event. There's some pictures from all of the events that we have had all over the world. It's been just a really great way for us all to connect, in person and then virtually, like these events today. So if you want to join, there's some other ways to follow us, which are on Instagram, TikTok. Obviously, you've registered for a virtual event. And then we also have in-person events, as I've mentioned. And then we have group tours. And a lot of them are sold out for the rest of the year, but we actually have a couple more spots. So if you're interested in those, you can go onto our website to check out more. And then you can become a chapter leader in your city if you're interested. I see so many of you with your videos on, so thank you for that. That makes it just more interactive and fun, but I'm going to make sure I keep you all muted just so we can make sure we hear Christine. But use that chat box for questions, and if you can just write the word question first, that way I can see it and make sure we get it answered for you at the end of the call. Christine is doing this out of the kindness of her heart, so please support her in any way you can, and I will definitely drop in all of the ways you can connect with her and support her in our chat box in just a little bit, and let's just have fun and enjoy this time together. So with that, I have the utmost pleasure of introducing Christine, who I said I've had the pleasure to actually teach me about flying drones. She is a drone pilot, an award-winning travel creator, and a podcast host. She has, in the last 2 years, millions of people have seen her drone work, and she has taught over thousands of people how to fly. She actually makes flying really easy and fun. I can attest to that, and definitely check it out through her online courses and through her YouTube channel called Drone with CL, and then, of course, today. So, Christine, without further ado, I will let you take it over from here.
Thanks, Laura. I'm so excited to be here today. I see a lot of familiar faces and names, so I'm so excited to see and I guess virtually meet you all. And for those who are still coming in, we'd love to know in the chat where you're tuning in from and if you've flown a drone before. I love flying drones. You'll hear all about that. But what I really want to do with you today is give you an introduction to where are we with drones today? And if you're considering getting one, or if you recently got one, what are some helpful things to know about them now? Because things are changing so fast, and you'll hear why. I had a slight headache this morning about how quickly things are changing, because it's kind of difficult to keep up. But I'm actually really also excited to be back with the Nomadic Network because I had the opportunity to teach drone workshops at TravelCon. If you were at TravelCon, tell us in the comments below. I'd love to know. And I also gave away one of my 5 drones to somebody here at the Nomadic Network on one of these chats. I was thinking about doing it again, which I don't know. Stay tuned for that future one because I'm currently at 4 drones and trying to get to 3. All right. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Cool. And I'm also both looking at you all and I'm looking at the chat. So if you have questions as we're going, I'll leave time at the end, but if something's super relevant and hot, I'm going to address it immediately. So this workshop is for you all, and I'll adjust it based off of what your needs are. But what I want to cover today is how flying a drone has gotten easier, especially honestly in the last 5.5 months, which is not that long of a period of time. Some of the updated laws and regulations that a lot of drone flyers, recreational and pilots don't even know about. The current lineup of drones now, they are launching so fast, and how to get started and get started quickly, because I mean, it's more fun to just get out there and fly a drone and not spend tons of time sitting inside trying to figure out how to do it. But Laura gave me a great introduction. Thanks, Laura. I'm Christine Lozada. I would say if there's one link for you to know about that will kind of summarize a lot of the things today, or if you're like, oh, wait, I wanted to see that, or I want to read that blog post, or I want to see that video, christinelozada.com/drones is the place to do it. And if for some reason I'm not able to answer your question today, this Facebook group is super fun. There's about 300 awesome other drone flyers in there. Not only will I answer your question, but they will. We have some really knowledgeable people from all over the world in there. If you can recognize the face that's in here, this is a screenshot of me flying my drone with Laura in San Diego. Actually, this is her flying her drone in San Diego. But one of the things I just want to call out really quickly, if you've never flown a drone before, I love how many people have been to TravelCon. If you've never flown a drone before, it's literally a push of the button to get it to take off. A lot of people don't know that. And I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people think you actively have to do something to get it to fly. So when you're driving a car, how do you make the car go? You have to actively be pushing on the gas. Once you push the button to get the drone to fly, it will hover on its own. Like there's nothing else you need to do. It's the best significant other in the world because it will not do anything until you tell it to. So if you just want it to stay there and hover in the air, it will do that until you tell it something else. And so I just want to share that first because a lot of people don't realize how easy it is. And one of the biggest fears is having to keep the drone actively in the air, and there's nothing you need to do for that. And one of the other things that has changed pretty significantly is how much technology is in the drone now to not only make it easier to fly, but safer to fly. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of those. But if you don't know this, basically, if you were flying a drone in 2015, you were like an OG. 2015 was not that long ago, but that was when people really started flying like the Mavic 1, the first drones that were out there, the Spark. And now fast forward, like think about how you listen to music today. Drones in 2015 were totally like cassettes, where if the tape came out, you totally had to put your finger in there and wind it up. Whereas now drones are more like listening to Spotify, right? Download all of that to your phone, play it online or offline. It's smart enough to know your habits and tell you what songs you might like. That's what drones feel like to me now. And so there's a couple of things of how technology has changed between now and then and now. One is it's hard to crash your drone. It's hard to crash your drone. And there's a couple reasons why. One is a lot of the drones today come with sensors in them. Actually, let's do a little show and tell. I have a few drones sitting next to me. And the sensors on the drone, depending on which kind of drone you get, will be located in various parts of the drone so that it can sense other objects around it. And depending on what you've told the drone to do, it will just stop before it even hits the thing. And so if you're flying your drone and there is a lovely tree right here, whoop, it's going to stop before it even gets to that point. So there are different kinds of sensors to help keep you safe, and also sensors for things like you might accidentally be landing, right? I showed you these sensors on the bottom. Oh crap, I don't mean to land, and the drone might pop away from what that thing is. And so one thing is obstacle avoidance or sensors. And I'll give you a tip around how to ensure not to crash, because there is a very consistent way people crash all the time, which I will talk about in a second. The other thing is longer flight times. And so batteries have gotten better. So one of the top ways that people used to be challenged in the past is that these batteries used to last like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, super short. And it's hard to like be enjoying exploring the world, getting these amazing views and be like, oh my gosh, I'm out of battery. Now you can get flight times of 30 minutes or more. This is a special max battery, which allows me a flight time of 43 minutes, which is pretty incredible. So it's getting easier in that sense. We already talked about that push of a button. There's a push of a button to launch the drone, a push of the button to land the drone, a push of the button. If you accidentally started flying your drone and you're like, oh my gosh, like, where is it? I don't see my drone. Like, how do I get it back to me? There's also a button that's called return to home. If you push that thing, it will just fly back to you. It will fly back to where you had launched from and then land right in front of you, which is pretty amazing. These are not things that were happening in the time frame of 2015 when the cassette-like drones were out there. And the other thing is there's less regulation around smaller drones. So let's actually talk about that in just a second, because this is one of the smaller drones versus I have another larger drone next to me, which we'll talk about. But I already gave you some of the answers. All right. So in here, how do you launch a drone? Easy push of a button. How do you keep it in the air? You literally do nothing, right? It will hover on its own. We learned a little bit about what obstacle avoidance is and how it has these sensors to help keep you safe. And actually tell me in the chat, do you think you need a license to be able to fly a drone? Tell me in the chat if you think you do or do not. I do have a license, not everybody does. And that's because I use my drone in very specific ways. And I'll talk to you more about that in a second. Ooh, good answer. It depends. Exactly. It depends. So if you use your drone in any way to make money, so for me, a YouTube channel that I make ad revenue off of, I sell my photos and videos to different PR firms, hotels, tourism boards when I'm traveling. Because of that, I need a drone license. And so if you are doing any kind of exchange of money, if you are inspecting roofs, if you are doing construction mapping, you'll need a drone license, but otherwise you don't. Anyone can fly a drone. My nephew flies my drone. And so you don't actually need a license. We will talk about registering your drone in a second, the same thing as putting a license plate on your drone. We'll talk about that in just a second. Where's my license plate at? And that's kind of a different thing as well. But we talked about kind of like regulations on drones. And one of the really clever things to do, one of the clever things that DJI did rather, was they made this drone 249 grams. Tell me in the comments if you know why that's significant. You don't have to say why, but tell me if you know why it's significant. So you can kind of see like this different size in drone. 249 grams is 1 gram underneath the legal limit for a drone to be a drone versus a drone to be a toy. And when a drone is considered a toy, it means unless you want to, and unless you're making money off of it, you don't actually have to register it. Registering it is easy. It's going online, filling out a little bit of info and getting literally a license plate for your drone. But if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to be tracked with your drone by the Federal Aviation Administration, i.e. the drone police, then you don't have to, because this is technically a toy. And that gets around a lot of the difficult drone regulations out there. And one of the things, and you may have seen this in the title or the information from the Nomadic network, is consumer drones, not like construction, not science, not the commercial market, but consumers, you and I. This drone market's about to hit 11.5 billion in the next few years. And that's wild to me because drones are getting cheaper. Like, think about this for a second. The average drone price now is around $400. How many drones are going to be out in the world if there's 11.5 billion, right? That's pretty wild. It's a lot of people flying drones, which means regulations are going to change later. And so DJI is getting smart and ahead of that game to allow more recreational people to have fun with their drones without having to deal with a lot of the other things and laws that are out there. I talked about one thing, which was how a lot of people crash their drone in a very consistent manner. And that's often because they will not clear things before they start flying. And this is what I mean by that. And Laura can probably relate to this because I forced her to do this a lot of times. I forced her to do something that I call the elevator, which is when you fly your drone, before we go forward and back and all around, all we did was we practiced going up and down. It is so boring. I think, Laura, I made you do it like 5 or 6 times. And you're like, okay, I get the point. But the point is, as long as you're going straight up and down and you've looked just like you do before you cross the street, you've finished looking left and right. For a drone, you've looked up and down, and you're not going to hit anything, you know you're clear. That's step 1. Step 2 is doing either a ballerina or a twirly, which is once you get up there, look around and do one twirl. And that helps you when your camera is pointing directly forward to see if you've cleared everything. So what you can see on the screen right now is this X. I've turned on my camera grid lines, and X marks the spot. And if I were to turn around, you can kind of see right here, right? I just recently cleared all of these huge power lines, but I've already cleared it. So if I were to fly forward or back, I know I'm good. Like think about it when you drive your car, right? When you drive your car, you've got other cars around you. With a drone, as long as you've cleared all the obstacles around you, now if I start flying forward or back, I am totally in the clear and I won't hit something. When people first start flying drones, they don't clear things before they start flying around. And that's one of the key things that causes people to fly into a tree or to hit something. They've stayed too low. You have the whole sky available to you. So this was Laura kind of mentioned at the beginning that I have courses. But this was a screenshot out of my course, which, by the way, I'm doing course giveaways for anyone who is attending today. I'll talk about that more in just a second. All right, I'm going in the wrong direction. Let's go this way. All right, safer. How has DJI helped you to be safer in flying a drone? There's a couple things. One is a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, like what if I accidentally do something illegal? Does anyone know what will happen? So this is actually from TravelCon. I'm here on this blue dot and the airport is right here. Let's pretend I was standing at the airport and I tried to take off with my drone. Does anyone know what will happen if I tried to launch my drone while I was at Memphis Airport after I landed for TravelCon? And Alan, to answer your question, register with whom? The FAA. So FAA stands for Federal Aviation Administration. And anytime you are taking exams for drones, registering your drones, giving any kind of money for that registration, there's a lot of scams websites out there, so be careful of that. You're using the government website, the FAA. So Federal Aviation Administration, to answer your question. So if you don't know what happens when you launch a drone at the airport, nothing happens. Nothing happens because DJI won't let you. It will sense your GPS. It will know where you are because the way you fly a drone is you are hooking up your phone through the app into the controller. And it's feeding information to your drone to be able to say, Christine is located right next to Memphis Airport. We're not going to take off. And so that's one thing to know. And there's lots of cases like that where your drone will help to tell you what's around you so that you can be more aware of accidentally or not even being allowed to even try to do something illegal. There's a lot of things that drones will help you with. In the past, back in 2015, that didn't exist. Like you just needed to know. But now it's a lot easier because think about it. There's no way DJI is going to stay in business if all of a sudden $11.5 billion worth of drones are all doing accidentally illegal things all the time. There's no way that the FAA would allow that many drones to be out there unless there was more regulation about it. And it's going to get harder as time goes on, which is why if there's a time to start flying a drone, it's now. in my opinion, and this is just an opinion, 2, 3, 4, definitely 5 years from now, it's going to get harder. It's going to get harder, and there's going to be a lot more regulation around it. But 2023 is going to be the year that I am flying all over the world super easily. So we kind of talked about this, and this is going through some of the advanced safety settings. This is a free video on my YouTube channel. But what I want you to see is that this screenshot is within the DJI app under their safety. And in here, I have flight assistance on, in which I can tell my drone when it sees an obstacle, what do I want it to do? Do I want it to, usually it's on brake, which is, right now I have it on bypass, which means it will go around the thing as best as it can. Or if you're feeling ballsy for whatever reason, you can turn that whole thing off. That's a whole other story. Talk about that in advanced stuff. All right. So those are some of the things that DJI has done to keep you safe, and some of the new technology that's in there. And when we start talking, I saw some questions in here about which drones are out there and which ones you might consider, because there's so many new ones. We will talk about that even more then. But let's just kind of go through a high level of the most important drone laws that you need to know. This was when I was flying drones in the Maldives. I had an opportunity to go out there with a bunch of scientists from Manta Trust. And so I was living on a yacht in the Maldives for 2 weeks, flying my drones to find them. And then once we found them, we would take the smaller boat out there, and you could see the researchers diving in, because then they would go in and like get samples, study them, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that you can do with your drone. I have a free course about how to storytell with your drone. And I talk about a lot of the ways that I get work with my drone in there. Just keep that in your back pocket. Definitely not the first thing to do. All right, let's talk about drone laws. And the number one thing that freaks people out are these maps. And we saw one of these maps already with the airport. But one of the things about the maps is like, you don't actually really need to learn how to read drone maps. It's easier than you think. And if you've used Google Maps, which my guess is everyone here has at least seen Google Maps. If you have an iPhone and use Apple Maps still, props to you. It's the same thing where you can tap around on the map. And when you tap around on Google Maps, right, they'll tell you a business that's there. It'll tell you the street name. It will tell you whatever, the park that's right there. With drone maps, it's the same thing. But when you're tapping around, it's instead telling you, yo, within 5 miles, there's an airport. Here, you either can fly or you can't fly. And if you can, this is how high you're allowed to fly up till. And so my takeaway for you here is a lot of people see these maps with all these colors and they get overwhelmed, but it's just like Google Maps, in which you're clicking around and it's telling you why you cannot fly there. And it's actually significantly more easy than you think. And there's really kind of just 5 things to know about laws. Honestly, there's like 3, but I'm going to give you a little bit extra with 5. One is looking at the maps, which we just talked about. Make sure you can fly there, right? If you're anywhere in the DC area, I'm sorry, because flying anywhere near the White House is very, very difficult. You got to go out of town. It's one of the hardest places to fly in the United States. So once you find a place to fly, you're looking for open airspace by using that map and simply tapping around. The next thing you can do is, well, actually, if you want to try this for your hometown, you can go to DJI's FlySafe. If you just type into Google or look it up on DJI's website, dji.com/flysafe, their map is on there and you can type in your own address and look at what's around you if you're curious. The next thing to know is if you are in a place that you are totally allowed to fly, there's nothing around, no airports, no prisons, no White House, 400 feet. You can fly your drone up to 400 feet in uncontrolled airspace is what they call it. The next thing is, and this is a must, you need to maintain visual line of sight. In other words, it doesn't mean when you're flying your drone, you need to always stare at it in the sky like all the time. You can look away, but if for some reason the Federal Aviation Administration were to come up and tap you on the shoulder and be like, Christine, where's your drone? I'm going to be like, it's right there. Like, you need to maintain visual line of sight and know where it's at, right? And we learn things like, oh my gosh, they're like, oh, I just put out a ridiculous video about not being able to find your drone on my YouTube channel. But if you can't find it, we also learned your drone will help you with this return to home button. And you doesn't have to come back and land. Sometimes you just need to get it back in your sight, and you can use it to get it back in your sight and be like, gotcha, and then go out and fly some more. So there are things DJI is doing to help you. The next one is a catch-all that I'm going to call common sense. And there's common sense on the easy side and common sense on the not so easy side. And so I'll help you to navigate this part and just with a few examples. The common sense side of things are, does the president want you looking at him while he's in his study having a meeting with the UN? Probably not, right? That's common sense. Probably can't fly anywhere near the White House. How about a prison? Can you fly over the prison, see what the prisoners are up to, maybe drop off some illegal items to them? No, right? That's common sense. You can't fly near prisons. You can't fly near secure places. Other secure places might be like City Hall, for example, or the Navy or the military base. These are secure places where they don't want you to have the ability to fly in and see what they're up to. The other side of common sense might be things that some people, here are some examples that people have found tricky. I have a podcast and I interview a lot of people from all over the world who are drone pilots. And we talk about the things that they wish they knew, the mistakes they've made, the best flights they've had, things that you can learn from. And one of them I did with Pavel, who's amazing. And he was flying in Spain. And he was like, I wanted to fly at this old historical castle. And the Spanish authorities took his drone away from him. And he's like, I didn't understand why they took my drone. And I was like, yo, you were at a historical site. Like, I know it seems like a tough one, but think about it. You're in a place where, let's just say at the entrance to this place, you handed out a drone to everybody. Everyone would totally take one and everyone would definitely be flying their drone there. Same thing with national parks, right? A national park is often a place where there are birds in a sanctuary or animals living in their natural habitat. It's a place where they're trying to preserve this special land. That's how it became a national park in the first place, right? They don't just turn anything into a national park. Because they are trying to preserve nature, imagine if 1,000 people went on a hike and all of them were flying a drone. Those birds that are nesting will probably never nest there ever again. It will probably scare every single animal that is in that space out of that space, and they won't come back. And it will make 1,000 people going on a hike feel like they are not in nature because all you will hear is the sound of these drones. And so when it comes to common sense, these are some examples of, yeah, of course you can't fly over a prison. That doesn't make sense. Military doesn't want you landing on their, I don't know, Navy ships, things like that. But then there's the other side where it might be a little bit more difficult. And you have to kind of think about it in these extreme examples of, there were 1,000 drones in the air right now, would this place be happy and would they allow that? And so that's the other side of things. This is a new one that a lot of people don't know about. And it's actually one that I recommend for anybody before they even get a drone. Because a lot of times people are like, no, it's hard. The drone laws are more than I thought they would be. Take the trust test, the recreational UAS safety test. It will probably take you about an hour. And at the very least, you can just kind of skim it and see what it's like. But it's a required test by anybody who flies a drone. I got my drone pilot's license. And when this came out a year and a half ago, I had to go take this. Everybody has to take it. And it's literally just a quick thing that you read and go through. It's free. And then you take this question, you do this exam at the end, and it's a no-fail test. In other words, if you get it wrong, you have to keep doing it again until you get it right. And I'm not saying start over and do it over, but until you get that question right. So it's actually a good time investment if you're considering a drone, because then you can understand like, these are the laws. These are things I can be more aware of before I even go commit to getting a drone. Because maybe And I'm going to be honest, there might be something in there that might make you think, nah, this might not be for me. And even though I freaking love drones and I want everyone to get one, it's not for everybody. And my latest Instagram post is, I think it was like 3 questions to ask yourself to help you understand if you actually should or shouldn't get a drone, or maybe if you should get a drone but wait. And so if you go to that Instagram post, I'm going to ask you to write. And write in all caps, I love drones. Anyone who writes that on that post, I'll show you the post in a minute, don't worry, will be entered to win my course. Or maybe it will just be everyone who does it. Who knows? All right. We'll talk about that more in a second. Which drone? So we're going to talk about which drone to get. And I saw a couple questions in here. Oh, thanks for adding that, Laura. And we're going to talk about the lineup, and you're going to see why I was frustrated this morning in just a second, because there are so many drones out there. Which, by the way, this picture, this is my boyfriend on the bottom horse with the Florida Tourism Board on the other 2 horses. But this photo was taken 2 months after I got my very first drone. I started flying in 2020. And I did work for the tourism board. I was on the cover of their magazine, and I flew my drone hand launched off of a horse to get this shot, and then caught it while I was on the horse again. That's how easy drones are. And that's how easy it is to get work with your drones. I just wanted to put that out there. That's not going to be the case when there are 11.5 billion worth of drones out there in people's hands. Now is the time, because like, think about your own repertoire of friends and people you know. How many people do you know that have a drone? Is it the majority of your friends or the minority of your friends? How many people have a smartphone where they can take photos with their phone? Everybody. How many people have a drone? Not that many. How many tourism boards, brands, tour companies want drone photos? 100% of them, always. All right. So this really quick, a quick pause. This post right here, the one with, well, I guess this is my boyfriend in the pool. This is me in the pool. This photo of me in the pool, this is the post, if you go look on my Instagram, with the 3 questions to ask yourself if you should get a drone or not. If you go respond on that with I love drones, go respond on that post, I will enter you. All right, cool. And don't forget, everything we talk about today is on christinelozada.com/drones. Oh, this is old. This is the part I really want you to see, though. That beginning shot was me flying. At that time, I owned 3 drones, was flying all 3 of my drones at the same time. Too many people think that it's really difficult to fly drones. It's not. I was flying 3 drones in that shot. I had 4 drones. I had 5. No, I have 4 now. Anyway, let's talk about which drones are right for you, because that answer is not the same for everybody. And it really comes down to, how will you use your drone? And do you want to make your drone into a business, or do you just want to have fun and explore the world? Do you want to travel with it? Are you primarily going to be at home with it? All of these things will go into it. And it's also a really big deal around how you use your phone and technology in general that will help you to understand what drone is right for you. And so I have this, it's 6 questions, but I pulled 5 from here. Personality test, that's free. Also on christinelozada.com/drones that you can take. But I'm going to walk you through what's in here and why. Teresa, I know. Teresa, just put it on any of them, but it's the one with me in the pool about 3 drones, or 3 questions of whether you need a drone or not. So the big thing about drones today is there's price and quality of camera. The quality of the camera is getting better and better and better, which we'll learn about in a second. But the advanced features that that camera can do is what's changing. So how advanced do you want to be? So what do you use to take your photos today? If you're using primarily your phone to take photos, which phones take fantastic photos, or do you use a DSLR or mirrorless camera? That is telling about what kind of drone you'll need. Because even when you do use your phone to take a photo, do you just let's take a selfie of with you guys right now. Do you just take a photo of yourself, or do you flip it into portrait mode, and then maybe you'll change it from natural light over to studio lights, and then you'll bring down the exposure just a bit, lock it in, and then take the photo? If you're like, no, I just take it out and I take a photo, and maybe if I'm lucky, I'll remember to wipe the lens. That says something about you. And that's not either a good thing or a bad thing, But too many people are like, oh, but I should get the top of the line. No, don't get the top of the line drone. Like, you probably don't even need to. You probably won't even use like all the advanced features. And so this will help to guide you around the drones that might make sense for you. And this last question, where are your photos and videos going? That's also very telling, because two things. If you are on projects, if you're working with Manta Trust in the Maldives and they are putting your videos, I filmed all those videos on my Mavic Air 2S, into production style video that's being shown on literally a movie screen, it needs to be shot at 5.4K. And I needed this drone for that project. If you are selling your photos and videos, it's important that you have really high quality and you have the ability to change the pro settings on your camera. Or if they're just going to your Instagram, I don't even shoot at the highest quality all the time. I'll shoot at 2.7K a lot for those videos. I don't have to have it in 4K. It takes up too much space on my phone. And the other thing is, if your photos and videos are primarily going to social media with the now newly launched Mavic 3 drone series, it shoots vertical. And so do you want it to do it for you so you don't have to do it in the editing process? Maybe. So those are two things to consider around where your photos and videos going. Do you need it to be professional? Maybe, maybe not. And are they primarily going to social media? Do you need it to be able to shoot vertical for you? Because if you don't know, drones will shoot horizontally today. The majority of drones, except the Mavic 3. And if you're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know where to get started. So let's talk about the drones that are out there. What did I do? Oh, I did it twice. Cool. All right. So this is what was giving me a headache this morning, because in the last 6 months, 2 brand new drones have dropped from DJI, and also they started discounting drones, which I've never seen before, which is really wild to me. So I'd say the first thing is, if you're considering getting a drone, wait until you are ready to use it. Don't be a Laura. Don't let it sit in the box. Drone's is not getting any newer, but newer ones are coming out. This drone just launched in the last couple of weeks. This drone is great. This is a great drone. It doesn't shoot at 4K. It doesn't have high quality. You can look kind of at this camera lens right here. It's a little bit smaller, but it's in the mini series. So it's your 249-gram drone. And it does some of the advanced features. So if you don't know, for example, what quick shots are, it's your drone taking the selfies for you. So imagine your drone. Here's you standing on a beautiful pier. Your drone can look at you, fly backwards, maintain looking at you, and then reveal the horizon and the beach beyond, all done for you, just with the push of a button. And what's new about the Mini 2 SE versus this was the older one, now no longer available, the regular Mini SE, is that this did not have as many of those features. And so there is that slight change. For $30 more, you basically get more features, a little bit of a longer battery life, and a slightly better drone. So that's the good drone. When it comes to better, they launched the Mavic Mini 3 Pro. That's this drone that I'm holding right here. And a fast follow to that was this one. So a step up from there is the Mini 3. You can see it comes at a higher price point. But if you look at this camera, what you have is a camera that's able to shoot vertically. And so that's one of the main features. The other ones being more sensors, more obstacle avoidance, more advanced features on what the drone will do for you. And so as you're going up in type, your drone's just doing more for you. This is Laura's drone. This is what the Mini 3 has replaced. This is still a great drone. And one thing to consider, we'll talk about used drones in just a second. I'm actually selling one of my drones right now, my FPV drone, because it's out of date, in my opinion. But the Mini 3 Pro this is when we start getting into the two, in my opinion, best drones for most people. The Mini 3 Pro is, again, like the camera is different. So this camera has the Pro camera on it, which is allowing me to do more in making my photos and videos look very professional. So actually, when I go film for a tourism board later this week, I will be using this drone on that project. And you'll see why in 3 weeks, when I go out to do another project, I'm bringing the bigger drone. I'll talk about that in a second. So this is just doing even more on the advanced camera front. This drone will advertise itself, the whole mini series will advertise itself as being level 5 wind resistance. But you know what? When it comes to flying a drone and wind, they all suck. They all suck. At the end of the day, DJI is a company that makes gimbals. Tell me in the chat if you know what a gimbal is. And if you don't, this is a flying gimbal. The gimbal is this piece that's right here. So you can see how the camera is on this gimbal that's right here. And so, yep, Maria knows what a gimbal is. And so your drone, when it's in winds, will oftentimes like slightly like turn to the side, and it's trying to keep the camera with the gimbal as steady as possible. And while the drones are getting better and better in wind all the time, the small drones do not perform as well. So when I am going back out to do training in the desert, because I'm doing a 10-day race with no GPS, no drones, racing a 4x4 from Northern California to Southern California, I am going to be filming out in high winds and hot conditions, and very, very high and very, very far. So I want my bigger drone because my bigger drone will help me to stay connected to my controller. Bigger drones can fly further than the smaller drones and stay connected. And they can take wind and all of the other things, just the elements in general, a little bit better. So this is the Mavic Air 2S. If I were to insert my opinion, the next Air drone will probably come out within the year, if not within the next 6 months. So if you're considering this drone, maybe see if it goes on sale when the new one launches, or wait for the new one, depending on where you are on your own investment. Because I do think either buying used drones or getting the one just below the new one that's out is perfectly fine. There's not the biggest difference, but the prices are coming down while the quality is getting way better, and it's pretty amazing. So this photo right here, this was actually shot on the Mavic Mini 3 Pro. This was a vertical shot that I took when I was traveling in Bonaire. I just want to give a quick thought on expensive drones, because you might be thinking like, oh, well, what about the pros? Like, what about the Mavic 2 Pro, or now the Mavic 3 Pro, or the Mavic 3 Classic that they call it? This is when this drone, and a lot of creators that I know fly the Mavic Air 2S, and it's good enough. But if you want one more level, and one of the creator teams that I fly with, Team One Blue Ocean, they all fly the Mavic 3 Pro. These are people who turn their drone photography into literally art in galleries. So if you want to be at that level, you should definitely get this drone. These drones are amazing. I love flying them. Are they necessary? In my opinion, no. But if you want it, you should totally get what it is that you want. If you're wondering why I always talk about DJI drones, no, I am not sponsored by them in any way. They own the majority, i.e. over 76% of the consumer market. It doesn't mean like, oh yeah, just because everyone's doing it, you should too. That's not why I'm suggesting it. It's more because of the safety stuff. They're catering to the people who, I handed my drone to an 8-year-old kid last night when I was playing pickleball. We were flying at night. I was like, yo, you want to fly my drone? That kid was about to do like 20 dumb things, but DJI knew that that kid would do 20 dumb things and has things in the drone to prevent them from crashing, from all the things. And so it has more safety features in there and really caters to people like you and I. And it's easier. When I have flown the Parrot Bebop with other drone pilots, we were both in the same spot, and he could take off next to the airport and I couldn't. And I'm like, yo, props to you if you want to fly right here, but if we get in trouble, I'm out of here. Like, this one's on you. And so there were a lot of things this drone wasn't helping him with, and he didn't have the know-how to be like, oh, well, I have 5 apps with all the drone maps on them like I did, right? Like, he just didn't know. And so that's part of the reason why I always push DJI drones. Will other great drones be coming out later? Probably, to be honest, probably. I'm not gonna knock that. But one thing I definitely do not recommend you do is buy not 249 gram toy drones, but proper toy drones. And so this is one of the drones that I flew with somebody recently. And her idea was, I want to buy a drone so I can practice flying so that when I get the real thing, I will not crash it. The thing about toy drones is they fly nothing like real drones. And so what's difficult about these drones is that they're not actually teaching you what you need to know. And I talk about this in my drone course. I think I have, do I have a screenshot in here? Maybe I don't. There's a simulator. If you just Google DJI's simulator, or you go into the App Store, DJI simulator, you can get a simulator app. And you can just with your feet, you don't even need a drone or anything. With your fingers, you can pretend to fly a drone and you can get used to what each side does. Because this is not intuitive. What do you hold on a daily basis that looks like this, right? This is not a steering wheel of a car. When you go drive a boat after you've driven a car, it feels really easy because it's the same thing. This does not do this, right? And that's also part of the reason why guys or girls who love to game have a little bit of a leg up, because it's natural, because it's like a PlayStation, it's like an Xbox. But if you don't play those games, this is not going to feel supernatural to you. Use the free apps and understand what the left side will do versus the right side. And that was one of the things that Laura, you and I worked on together, which was, let's just learn what the left side does without even touching the right side. And then once we master the left, we'll master the right, and then we'll put the two together, do the crazy chicken dance, right? And so it's all about like breaking it down, because nothing that we do is like this on a normal basis. I have a couple quick resources for you, and then I know there's some questions in here and we'll get to that. So YouTube channel, I have a playlist in here about which drones to get. And there's also other playlists. I have a video in there about my mom flying my drone. She's actually really good at flying my drone. Oh, this is what I wanted to show you. So before you get a drone, things you can do, that free flight simulator, take the trust test. We talked about that earlier. Go take the test for yourself. It's free. Go try it out. The other thing, go to the DJI FlySafe website, right? Tap around on that map and see what it's like right next to you. The number one thing that the drone maps does for me, I'm always like, wow, I had no idea there is a prison right there. I'm like, wow, that prison is like right on the beach. That must have a really good view. Like I find prisons in this way. It's very strange. Anyway, you can do that today. These are 3 things you can do now. Once you get a drone, I have this free video on my YouTube channel where you can set up your drone with me. It's not crazy intuitive, right? Laura, you couldn't figure out where one of the cords was at until you were actually with me. Yeah, it's not intuitive. There's nothing that we set up on a daily basis that's like this. And so it's a quick 5-minute video to help you get through some of the top things that make people spend hours setting up their drones. I've set up 5 now. There's definitely a process to it. These are my courses. You can find that, but ChristineLozada.com drones is where it's at. Oh yeah, these were my 12 safety tips. So on my Instagram, I have tons and tons of all kinds of stuff on there. But these are like 12 easy ways to not crash or lose your drone that a lot of people don't know about. There's a lot in those safety settings. Man, come on, Canva, come with me. All right, I think we're ready for questions. I get so excited about drones. Thanks for sticking with me today. Let's take some questions. Laura, do you mind helping me?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Amazing. You guys, Christine is the master. I know she called me out a couple times. Sorry. I messed up on, but seriously, you follow along what she says to do, whether it's through this or her online courses or the videos she has, social media, you name it, and you will be fine, because it took me literally a year to take it out of the box. And finally,
you did it though.
I did it. I finally did it. I didn't crash. I flew it. I kept it in sight most of the time. And then when I couldn't find it, I did press that return home and it came back to me. So you can do it too. If I can do it, you definitely can. Okay. So we've got tons of great questions. Okay. So the first one I am going to ask is, and this is kind of just what I mentioned, but I'll have you answer it anyway. Is Catherine asked, does it fly back to where you lifted off? Or if you move, does it fly back to you directly?
That's a great question. Because a lot of times when I'm flying my drone, I'm not sitting on the back of a car with Laura and not moving. I'm hiking somewhere, I'm boating somewhere, I'm driving somewhere. And so actually, I just dropped this video on my YouTube channel, which you can find for free, but it's about updating your home point. So within your drone, there are 3 points that your drone is reading. One is the point in which, where the heck is the drone? The second point is where is the controller, which is normally in your hands. And the third point is what you call the home point, or where you took off from. So let's say I'm kayaking, hand launch my drone, cool, kayak some more. My 3 points are now in 3 different places, right? And so I often will do 2 things. One, I will go into safety and I'll just press update home point, and you can choose. Do you want the home point to be where the drone is at? Do you want the home point to be where the controller is at in your hands? In this instance, I actually want it to be the dock that I'm about to go kayak over to. So in case I run out of batteries, or in case something goes wrong and my drone returns to the home point, it's not going to land in the water. It's going to land on the dock. And so just like Google Maps, I can move the map to be like, yep, dock or land or the top of my car or whatever it is. And then I update it. And so that's how that works. If you're moving around a lot, updating your home point is key. I talk about that a lot, especially when I'm teaching people how to fly off of boats.
Perfect. Good answer. Hopefully everyone understood that. Just get your drones out and try it, and you'll be able to figure it out. Okay, so we actually had a question come in on this, and we had it earlier. So it's basically, how do you find and deal with regulations in other countries? For example, is it easy or difficult getting a drone through an airport? And is there a list of countries that kind of allow, or where would you find that? Yeah.
It's a good question. And Morocco is a really good example of a place that doesn't allow drones. And there are places that won't even allow drones to pass through their country. So for example, if you're flying from one country to another, and Morocco or Egypt or somewhere is your transfer, you got to be careful about that. And this is one where it's challenging and people will get frustrated. So there's kind of 2 things to consider. One, we talked about it with the phones. How many people do you know that have a smartphone with a camera on them? Everybody. How many people do you know that have drones? Not a lot. But drones are growing a lot. But countries are still trying to catch up to the laws. So you'll find places like the Bahamas, which has a ton of US citizens coming in with their drones. So they've made it so easy, in which you will go and quickly fill out a form, and within 24 hours, they will allow or not allow you to fly your drone in the Bahamas and give you the permissions, and you're set to go. You print out your paper and you're on your merry way. There are other countries like Tanzania, where they have hundreds of requests per day, and this many people working in that office processing them. And it is a 6-week turnaround for them to give you permissions if they choose to do so. And so the way I approach this is, and I talk about this actually on my How to Fly a Drone in the Bahamas video on YouTube, but I go to Google and I type in the country, and I try to find the equivalent of the government website. So we talked about the Federal Aviation Administration for the United States. What is the FAA for that country? And so it was like the Bahamas Aviation Administration or something. And if it happens to be in a different language, the one for Tanzania definitely was, then I'm using Google Translate. This is where my traveler hat comes on, right? I'm using Google Translate to try to search through that, or I'm just doing a control find for the word drone on the website to try to find their process. Everyone has a different process, and unfortunately, that's just the case for now. Have I had my own problems with drones? Absolutely. There's a reason why I keep a crisp 50 in my drone bag for when I go to Mexico. Those drone laws are very confusing because while there's nothing on their government website, I've translated the entire thing and read it. they also softly say only Mexican citizens are allowed to fly. And so these are places where it just will get tricky. And I see flying drones in other countries as the same challenge I felt in trying to travel during the pandemic, in which people had to adjust their laws as you went. And so that's one thing to know. Just drones are growing. The laws are changing fast. Always try to start with the government version of the FAA for that country. That's how I do it today.
Okay, great tips. So I'm curious, have you ever had a drone taken away when you've tried to go through security or anything, or have you always been fine, which is why you have the $50 bill?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Oh, all the things, whether they try to take it, and they're basically asking for a bribe to get it back. Or the guy that I often fly drones with, when he was flying through a country you're not allowed to have drones at, he wasn't staying in that country, he was passing through. Oh no, sorry. It was the country he was landing at. They made him put his drone in one of their safety lockers until he came back. It was not an easy process for him to get it back, but he got it back. And so he had to hold his drone at the airport. That's not an uncommon thing. That happened to another girl I talked to who went to Kenya. They made her put her drone in a locker, which she had to pick up at the airport on her way out. So that was another example.
Okay, that's not too bad. At least you get your drone, it's not taken away, and then they're all flying it. So that's not bad. Okay, actually, still on the travel subject, someone was curious if you are able to fly with them in the carry-on, or take them on the airplane for your carry-on, or do you normally check them?
It's a good question. And this is one, actually, it's like I feel like a broken record. I have a video about this on my YouTube channel. So the way you fly with a drone is, so actually yours looks similar, Laura, but this is the DJI drone bag that holds the drone. And the way that you fly on an airplane with a drone is you can bring it, the whole thing carry on. An additional step, if you want, is you put the batteries into I don't know how to pronounce it, LiPo or LiPo, LiPo bag. In other words, you guys remember those stories of like the Samsung phones or whatever that were catching fire on the airplane? Basically, it's a bag where if the drone battery were to catch fire, it would contain the fire in the bag. I, knock on wood, have never heard of that happening. But if you want that additional step, take your whole drone carry-on, put the one battery in, any spare batteries go into that LiPo bag. If you want to check your drone, and sometimes I check my drone because sometimes I'll bring 3 on a trip, depending on what the project is. Then in that instance, drone with a battery in it goes into your carry-on, and then all your spare batteries come onto the plane with you. And if you have 3 drones, these things add up. And so consider the wattage, the total wattage that you have, because usually there's limits on some planes of how much wattage you can bring. Well, I don't know how many times you guys are going to be flying with 3 drones. It's excessive, in my opinion. And my last tip for you, I used to take these gimbal covers, plastic gimbal cover, and throw them away. Keep them. The camera is the most important part. And actually, really quick about used drones. I'm a total fan of buying used drones. As long as it flies and the camera is in perfect condition, you are good to go. And with how many drones are coming out now, buying a used drone is not a bad thing, in my opinion. It does not need to look pretty. I have a dent right here from where I was attacked by a bird. I think you can see that. But you know what? Flies perfectly fine. You don't even notice a difference. It's fine. Put the gimbal cover on it is my last tip for when you travel with your drone.
I was going to say, good point about who cares what it looks like, because it's the pictures and videos that you want anyway, right? That's the whole point. Exactly. Okay, we've got, actually, you were talking a lot about the batteries, so we have quite a few questions about that. So do you find you need extra batteries? And how long does it actually take for the battery to charge?
Oh, these are great questions. So first, you always need more batteries than you think. And one of the things is the batteries, it might advertise a 31-minute flight time, but that's when there's no wind and no kind of weather at all. which is never the case, right? So on average, my flight times tend to be about 20 to 22 minutes. And on very windy days, they're like 17 minutes, and that's so short. And if you are somewhere, I caught the black-tip shark migration. Imagine 500 sharks jumping, swimming around, doing magical things. I wish I flew 6 batteries that day. I wish I had 7. Like, you will always want more batteries, which is why I do recommend getting the Fly More package. And so actually, somebody just recently sold me 2 more batteries. That was all I wanted, was just the batteries. So I do recommend more batteries. The flight times are always short. What was the last part of that question?
I think you answered it
Oh,
all.
how long? No, how long to charge?
Oh, how long to
Longer
charge?
than you want it to. So this drone, for example, each of these batteries, which lasts about 26 minutes, 27 minutes, these take an hour and a half to charge each. It takes a really long time. The mini batteries are a little bit faster, but you can still anticipate them taking at least an hour. The first time I ever flew a drone, I brought my travel charger, plugged it in, hoped it would charge while I was driving to my next location. Yeah, I got like 3% more battery. Like, it did nothing. So it does take time.
Yeah, I think, wasn't that one of my problems too? I mean, there were a lot of things I didn't do, but I don't think I charged the battery long enough. So we were charging it real quick when we got there. So yeah, just make sure
I
you
love
do
it.
that. I know you mentioned real quick, I didn't catch the name, but of the battery backup pack. And do you know what the cost of that is? You said Fly.
Oh, the Fly More package. So you guys will see as you look at the drones, you can buy the drone and the controller alone. Actually, I think this is how you bought yours, because you have the bag. The Fly More package is what gives you, and they'll advertise it as being a million things, but really the only things that you need in there: a bag if you don't have a bag to carry your stuff, and then the spare batteries. And generally they will come with something like this. So this is charges all of them at once instead of having to individually charge each one, so that after I have flown all my 3 batteries, then I can just plug this in at night while I go to sleep, and it'll be ready for sunrise in the morning, sunrise drone in the morning.
All right. Another question, lots of battery questions. I know, because when you have your drone up in the air, you want to make sure you have the battery. So this one is, when the battery's getting low, how long do you have to get the drone back to you? And does it signal to you?
It's a great question. And it's one of the things that DJI does to help keep you safe. And broken record, there is a video on my YouTube channel called 12 Things You Need to Know About Your Drone Battery. But one of the things about DJI is it will sense, depending on how you're flying your drone, it can tell how much more battery time you'll have left. So if you're flying slow, 2 miles an hour, you're good. It's going to show you're at 70% battery. But if it is a windy day and you are ripping at 42 miles an hour on the fastest speed of your drone and you're going, then your drone will know you don't have 72% battery. At that rate, you probably have like 24% of battery. And because your drone knows, because you plugged it in, because there's GPS, it knows how far away you are. Christine is 2,000 feet away. Given the rate in which she's flying, she's going to run out of battery and she's not going to make it back. And so your drone will go from green to yellow. And when it gets to yellow, it's going to start warning you about your battery. And then when it gets to red, then it will automatically kick in return to home. Drone battery low, drone will return in 10 seconds. And you have a choice: either slow your roll, quit flying at 42 miles an hour, you'll see your battery life jump right back up if you go back to flying a normal 10 miles an hour, for example. Or otherwise, your drone, you can allow it, you can cancel it, fly it back on your own, or it will just come back anticipating how much wind and how far you are to make sure it can fly back and land safely. So that is something that's built in for your drone. If you keep saying cancel and be like, nah, F it, like I'm going to keep flying, I don't care. And I have a video about that also on my channel. But what it will do is your drone will just start to land wherever it's at. And you can fight it, but your drone will just start to land when it is completely out of battery. So make sure you're not over water when that happens. But you will be so warned And the other thing is they make the beeping sound very annoying. Like you won't be able to ignore it. It's very annoying. It's like having something in your eyeball.
They make them smart. All right. So kind of along those lines too, how does the drone tell you if you exceed the 400 feet?
Oh, it will tell you. So a little warning sign will come on. So this is another thing about DJI drones, not Parrot drones, not the other drones, is that, and it'll be like as annoying as your mom texting you when you're like trying to take a photo or something like that, where you have to keep swiping it away. High wind warning, like your drone will tell you that. High wind warning, or like the low battery one, or like your drone will know where you're located. And sometimes, like let's say it's not 400 feet, let's say you're kind of near an airport, but not too close, and you're allowed to fly up to 200 feet in that area. Once your drone hits 201 feet, it will give you that warning. It will give you that warning. And in some places, especially secure places, like somewhere I flew last week, I keep forcing it to go higher and it just won't. It won't. I'll go to 200 and it won't go beyond that unless I put in my pilot permissions to get higher altitude. It won't let you. So your drone is helping you to stay safe and also preventing you from breaking rules, even if you want to.
Exactly. You're that risk taker, right? Be careful. It's not going to let you do it.
Okay. It's generally not worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks everyone for staying on. We've got just a couple more questions. These are all really good. So I want to get through them. Christine, are you okay with just maybe 5 more minutes?
Let's do one more.
One more?
Then don't forget the Facebook group, because it's not just me at that point. If you ask your question in the Facebook group, we got some fire drone, both pilots and recreational flyers in there that are super knowledgeable, who will be super excited to answer your questions, to be totally honest.
Perfect.
But I'll be in there also.
Can you drop, I don't know.
No.
Can you drop that into the link? Okay. Cause I don't think that was the one I shared. Just want to make sure we have the right one. Okay. So I think the last question we're going to end with is hopefully the rest of you, we more or less got your answers throughout some of the other questions, but let's go with this last one, which is when shooting within the United States, are the drone laws different state by state? And where is the best way to go to educate yourself on that?
That's a great question, because there's something additional called CBOs, or community-based organizations. And you might not know this, but in the state of Utah, if you want to chase a cow with your drone, it's illegal. I mean, I don't know how many people want to chase cows with their drone, but you are actually not allowed to do it in that state. Maybe you're allowed to do it in California, but I don't know who wants to do that. And so, yes, there are some state-specific things. And this is the way I navigate that, because you're like, oh my gosh. One, I start with the drone maps, just like we did, click around and look. The second thing I do is I might just go on to Google and just type in, like, I don't know, Redondo Beach, California drone laws, and just see what comes up, because I'm specifically looking for things like, is it a state beach? Because if it's a state beach, in the same way that there's national parks, state parks, sometimes there's additional laws around that, right? And this is where the common sense thing comes in, where it's like, okay, if the government got involved in this piece of land, then there might be additional laws. But then it's oftentimes just looking on the ground, because there are state parks that are out there that are totally fine with you flying a drone. And there are state parks out there, and I'm talking countrywide, not specific states right now. And some state parks that are like, no. And there's like signs everywhere. Generally, if you're not allowed to fly a drone there will be a posted sign. Anytime I'm going into a park, anytime I'm going into a historical site, into a beach, I'm looking for the no drone sign. And I'm otherwise looking for any posted laws online. And again, focusing in on government websites. So now I'm looking for the city website or something like that.
Okay, perfect. Good to know. Yes. Like for me, I'm in San Diego, it gets tough with all the military bases and all that.
So many bases around there. Yeah.
You definitely have to be smart on where you are doing that. Okay. This was amazing. You guys, thank you for all of your questions and for being here for today and for going over a little bit of time with us. And Christine, thank you for all of your knowledge. I mean, I really value what you say. You taught me. So hopefully all of you, I think Elise is one who is like me, who has not taken it out of the box yet. Looks like she's going to go do it this weekend. So hopefully all of the rest of you can as well. And then follow Christine. Christine, do you have any other parting words before we end?
Connect with me on social. You can find me everywhere. Join us in the Facebook group if you have more questions, or even if you don't have questions. But ChristineLozada.com/drones has everything that you need to find all of my resources. But I love drones. I'm here to help you out with your journey. So feel free to connect with me.
Awesome. Okay. And I just have to do a shout out real quick to Audra. She just messaged that she had just took the drone out of the box right now, which is huge. That's way better than I ever did. You're on a great step to that. So
I love that.
Amazing. And then normally everyone, I share my screen and I let you know about the other things coming up with the Nomadic Network. But because we're just out of time, just head on over to our website. That's where you can find out what's coming up for more virtual events, in-person meetings, and group tours. And then hopefully we'll see you at one of those in the near future.
Thank you for having me.